Welcome to our first career speaker series of the year. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm really excited that everyone's here. I'm excited that we have our guest today, Mike Bryant from Amazon Web Services Educate. I'm excited we have all of you guys here. So thank you so much for coming. For you guys who don't know, my name is Claude. I'm the Outreach Coordinator and Advisor for Computer Information Technology and Cloud Computing Programs here at Delgado Community College, and I am the host for this event. I am joined today by, like I said, Mike Bryant from AWS Educate. Mike will be talking about the cloud, the AWS platform, careers in the cloud, and he'll be answering questions from you guys. It's really fantastic. But before we begin, just want to kind of fill you guys in for everyone who is new. The Career Speaker Series that we have is a monthly series of guest presentations from industry professionals in the IT field, just to talk about what it is that they do, how they got there, how you can do it too, just kind of demystify all these tech careers and opportunities that are in the world. And we do this for you guys, for our students, for our faculty and staff, as well as for members of the community, such as a bunch of our guests today from both New Orleans Science and Mathematics High, as well as St. Aug. So yay! The format of these events is pretty standard. Presentation by our speaker, followed by a Q&A. So I ask that everyone please mute yourself while our guest is speaking until the Q&A time. Feel free as well to drop any questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring it, especially because I know sometimes people are shy or sometimes connections go out, or just when you're thinking it and you don't want to blurt it out. So just throw it in the chat. But besides that, have fun today. And if you're having fun, I highly encourage anyone to, if you're watching and use social media, shout out about it. We're using the hashtag the other CSS because ours is Career Speaker Series, but CSS can also mean cascading style sheets. Some tech humor there. So feel free to use that. And you can always drop a line to us at Delgado if you want to know more or just have other questions that we can kind of field to our speakers. By shooting an email to us at cmin@dcc.edu. That's C as in cat, M as in man, I as in info, N as in network at dcc.edu. That is it for all of my announcements and everything. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike from AWS Educate, and he is going to educate us about AWS. So Mike, it is all you.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the warm introduction there, and for all of you who are joining, me today for this session. Excited to share with you about AWS, but really more excited to share with you the opportunities that brings to you. Meaning that there's a lot of opportunities for careers that are out there utilizing cloud. And we're going to demystify the cloud a little bit for you here today. And I want to start by just talking about my journey of how I came to my position at AWS. So right now I'm what's called a senior technical business development manager. What does that mean? What do I actually do? Well, a lot of my job is supporting educators and institutions of learning as they teach cloud computing skill sets. So it's making sure that your faculty, that instructors there, that you as students have a lot of different ways to learn about cloud and to get practice with these really highly in-demand skill sets. We're going to walk through some of them here today and make sure you understand really what is the power of cloud and what do we mean when we say that. But I've been with AWS now 2.5 years. At Amazon, one of the things is we're always hiring. So 2.5 years in doesn't seem like a lot, but it puts me in on kind of the older side of those who are at AWS, surprisingly enough. But my career certainly did not start in technology. My career did not start in working with Amazon. If I rewind without dating myself too much, all the way back to the 1990s, my first career really was in education. I was a teacher, biology teacher, and I started with that path of studying biology in college. Knew I wanted to teach, taught biology. And it was really at the cusp of, you think in the late 90s, when a lot of the internet boom was happening, and I saw all this change in technology. And it became easier for me to bring that technology into my classroom with my students to help engage them. And that was my first kind of entry into wanting to learn more about how can technology help me and help my students learn the skills they need to be successful. And that really led into me taking the opportunity to lead what we called 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. And this was about helping students who maybe weren't getting what they needed from traditional school and making sure they had a lot of different opportunities to learn and be creative, and also to get skill sets that they can feel confident in. And a lot of that was technology driven. And I think about that from the very top level of the stack of technology. And we're going to go kind of through that stack, meaning it was using technology like you see on the screen here, like a PowerPoint, using programs that were already made. How do we introduce those technology skills to students? And more importantly, how do we make sure that faculty who are working with those students are comfortable with using technology as well? So that whole idea of making sure, faculty and my staff and faculty were comfortable with technology really forced me to learn more about technology, like what are best practices. And I went from there of just kind of learning more about it. How do I empower other educators to embrace technology? It doesn't seem like PowerPoint would be such a thing, but rewind 20 years and it was 25 years and it was a skill that people were learning. How do you make best effective use of it in a classroom? But that really branched into me actually going to work and stretching myself, taking a leap. I taught in Florida. I taught in a very rural area of Florida in what's called Levy County, kind of in the panhandle area of Florida. And I took a giant leap of saying like, hey, I want to do more and stretch myself. And I went to work for a company called Discovery. So Discovery is like Discovery Channel, like TLC, like that, the network. I went to work for them, who had an education division that was focused on really taking the knowledge that we had around how technology works well with students and making sure faculty around the US and eventually around the world were comfortable with using different and new technologies in their classroom. And I spent 12 years there building communities of educators, getting deeper into how do we build technology, how do we make things easier to use, how do we make sure that the technology that we're using is going to be highly effective. And those, just allowed me to continue to learn more about how things are designed. When we put a product out there for you to use, so you log in, you're using Zoom. Somebody had to figure out, how should Zoom look? How should that, where should the icons be? What should the icons look like? What are the most important things? It's that the idea of how do I make sure that the user interface is good? And that allowed me in my career to start thinking about that, from listening to teachers who come back and say, hey, I can't find this. And another teacher, this is not working well. Really having me to inform our product developers what works best, like what's helping students, where if they can't find it, then it's not really helping them out. So for me, the journey was just the continuing learning as the technology grew, continuing for me to work a lot more being that voice of our customer, which was our educators, back to a product team that is, has software developers, that has those who are making sure that from an operational standpoint that we're not compromised, with our security, but making sure that I was the voice of going into those technical conversations, say like, here's the requirements, here's what we really need for you to build to make this successful out with educators and with students. So it was that gradual journey for me of always wanting to learn more. I think the taking risks and taking chances it always served me well in my roles, from going from just entry level at Discovery with their education side to identifying big needs within our division and within our company and saying, hey, there's a huge need for somebody to do this bit of work that I am excited about. And going to managers and saying, hey, I want to try this. Can we create that role? I did that many times in my career, saying like, there's not somebody who's doing this. This is a huge need. It can help us in many ways. Can we create this? Sometimes it worked, and I got a new position created out of thin air with a whole staff because there was a major need we identified. Other times I took the risk and it was like, nope, that's not a priority. It's not going to work for you. But you have to take the risk. You have to be willing to say, I see a need here. I'm going to stand up and say, here's a solution for it, and put me in charge of it to make it happen. And each time I did that, whether it failed or whether it worked, and we got that in place, it required me to learn a little bit more, to go a little bit deeper and stretch myself. And especially when I came on, I got the opportunity to help build out a community for AWS, and specifically the AWS Educate program globally. That was a whole nother step. I talked about the top of the stack where it's kind of the software, that we're looking at software as a service, that you use Zoom or you use Gmail or you use those type of things, or just kind of the end user services. I had to go learn down, what does the infrastructure look like? What is networking? And for me, that was a brand new field, but I took it on. I took the risk of saying like, you know what? People have learned this. I can go learn it. I'm going to go take every course I can to learn this, so that I can learn the technology well enough to be able to help other faculty teach this. And that was another risk. It's not that it was easy, but it's attainable. I had zero technology background from an education standpoint, but I was able to go out on my own and start to learn. And then I was able to tap mentors and say, hey, you already know this. Can you help me? Can you point me in the right direction? So finding a mentor allowed me to grow exponentially. So those are some of the things that take the risk, find a mentor, don't be afraid to learn something new, because it really does pay off. And especially in technology, it's changing so fast. And it's still, from a cloud standpoint, really new. So this is not something where companies are going to be always looking for somebody with 10 or 15 years of experience to come in. Those are unicorns, meaning if you're going to find somebody with 10 years experience in cloud, that is someone who is a senior level, because the cloud just hasn't been around that long. So when we talk about a little bit later on the jobs opportunity that are out there, know that there's a huge demand, and that our job at AWS is to inform employers like, hey, when you put in a job description and you say you're looking for an entry level with 5 to 10 years of experience, we make sure to tell them like, that is not entry level, and that's not really what you're looking for. What are the skills you're looking for, so that we can inform like Delgado, these are the skills that are being looked at. And so that we could also take the next step to say, hey, employers, this is where your talent pool is. This is where you're going to get those that have the skill sets you've told us they need. And we're telling you that we've worked with Delgado to make sure they have the technical expertise in AWS to do what you need them to do. So there's a technical expertise, and there's another set of skill sets that you're learning there that are highly important. And we'll go through those in just a moment. But I want to tell you a little bit about my background. Again, started not technical at all, teaching biology all the way up through working for AWS, but it was about taking those risks. It was about making sure I'm always learning, and even though I was scared to take a technical leap, making sure that I took the chance. Like I knew other people had learned this, I'm going to go try it. And then finding a mentor. The mentor piece is that can be somebody, within a company you're looking for. It could be a faculty member to help guide you. It could be a friend, a family member who has done some of this work before. Or when you get into a company in that first job, that would be my first question. Like, is there a mentor program? Is there, somebody you can point me to that maybe is, not my direct boss, that can help guide me in my career? That guidance is absolutely crucial. So I'm going to get started. I want to go kind of quickly through cloud. I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint presentation very quickly. But I want to kind of level set with what is cloud. What is this? A lot of people that I talk to, they'll say like, yeah, I use iCloud and I use other services which do exist in the cloud, but not exactly the cloud and what we would define it as. At AWS, we really think of it as this line at the very bottom. It's on-demand delivery of IT services through the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. What does that mean? What in the world does that mean? What it means from what the news you hear is there's constant growth here. It's very new. Even though it's been around for, certainly more than a decade, it's still new. It's still new with more and more companies moving their infrastructure to the cloud. And one of the things, what we mean by that delivery of IT resources via the internet for pay-as-you-go is that the ability to have servers, to have the ability to have this infrastructure is now, something that everyone has access to. It's something that it's not limited to just the huge enterprises that have access to this compute power, that have access to databases, that have access to machine learning, all these services we'll dive into in a moment. But the main reason for all this move to the cloud, and the reason for it is cost is a factor, one, but also it's more about agility. So it's about companies being able to take those risks and chances I was kind of talking about before. I have an idea. I think I've heard from our customers that this is a big need, or I've heard from my community there's a big need for a type of service. In a company that, maybe it's a web application, maybe you're trying to build the next Yelp or Netflix or something like that. The way cloud works is, whereas before, roll back to pre-cloud, at a company, if I wanted to try a new idea, or as an entrepreneur, if I wanted to try a new idea, I had to put out a lot of money to get that started, meaning I needed to buy servers. You need to go through a procurement process to do that. You need to think about what peak demand was going to be for those servers, meaning you had to think about, at the highest level, I need to plan for that so that things don't crash. So you had to buy for peak where you're not always at peak. You might have something that's seasonal. So you had to outlay a lot of money to be able to try something new or to get a business started. Which not everybody has. If I wanted to try something as a teacher coming out, I didn't have the cash to be able to do that. What cloud did is turn computing, the idea of getting servers and trying new things, into more like a utility. So think about when you leave leave a room, you turn the lights out. When you finish taking a shower, you don't leave the shower running all day, right? That's wasteful. You would never think of that. You turn the shower off. That's the same thing for cloud computing. If you need it, you're paying for it. If you don't need it, stop it, get rid of it. You don't pay for it. So that's kind of the idea of a utility. If you need something running, great. And that's probably important to your business. And that happens when you think about the peak and the lows of usage for any business. You think about, are there peak usage for services like Netflix? Netflix is built on AWS. So when there's a huge demand for everybody's watching a brand new show that came out, or binge watching something, Netflix doesn't have to worry about, all right, did we procure the servers? Have they been installed? Are they set up? Are they maintained? All they have to worry about is auto scaling, meaning, all right, we've got a huge spike in demand. We're going to bring online another 10,000 servers. Demand's over. We're going to get rid of 10,000 servers, and you don't have to pay for them. So it's agility. It's ability for a company to say, we're going to try something new. We're going to go out. We're going to build it out. We're going to test it. If it's a failure, guess what? I shut everything down, terminate it. I don't have to pay for it. So it's ability to say, I can try something and I can fail and I can learn, and it's going to cost me significantly less to do that. So that's where the price comes in, and where you see so many companies moving to the cloud, because they have the ability to try and innovate and do it fast at an incredibly cheap price. So that's a big reason for the move to cloud, and you see this growth. There's other factors I won't go into. Certainly cost, like we mentioned before, is a factor into that. The technology of being able to maintain this. So there's a lot of other reasons to do that. But the big reason for you to think about is there's a lot of companies that are moving this across all industries. So I just pulled up a few here to think about. If you've ever played Fortnite, Epic Games is built on AWS. Netflix, I mentioned, but it's Netflix, it's Hulu, it's Amazon Video, it's Disney Plus. All of those are built on the back end on AWS. Canvas, Instructor, you might be using that learning management system, or Blackboard. A lot of those in the back end are built on AWS. And if you've ever shopped on Amazon, of course, that's where we got our start of building out this, is with Amazon.com. So these are all things that you might have used that you didn't know on the back end you were using AWS. But yeah, a lot of the services you use are built on there. And again, it's across all industries. I pulled up some more of the ones that you might be familiar with, but companies like JP Morgan Chase, so financial sectors use it. Lockheed Martin uses it. Any industry, healthcare, any industry you can think of, from very large enterprises all the way down to startups and small, think of more like mom and pop type businesses, use cloud. Why? Because if I started a business, like my dad had his own business when I was a kid, they would have the same access to technology that multi-billion-dollar companies have access to. And what's pretty cool is that all of you on this session can have that same access through the Educate program, meaning you can go in and try and use the same exact technology that engineers at Netflix are using, that engineers at Lockheed Martin are using. It's making sure that we democratize compute, meaning it shouldn't be that because right now I can only afford a $120 laptop, I shouldn't be able to build up my skill set and try out things that somebody who can afford a $5,000 laptop. Because now everything's to the internet. Through a $120 Chromebook, I can spin up an infrastructure that can run Netflix, right? So the idea behind that is pretty cool. And that's why you see everybody talking about cloud. That's why cloud's been one of the top skill sets on LinkedIn for the last 5 years. And that's why every industry is looking for talent. They're looking for those with that skill set. And that's why we have focused in on making sure that we help you get these jobs. We want students to get these jobs. Getting a certification, getting a degree in this will help differentiate you from other candidates. I think about the thousands of jobs that are out there that require cloud skills, and it really is a huge in-demand field out there, and something that is absolutely obtainable by all of you on this call. It's something, like I said, I didn't start from a tech background, did not have computer science, anything like that. It was something I was able to do and go and learn. You just have to be willing to try. Be willing to try it. Try and fail. Fail is first attempt in learning, is what I always say. So that's where, think of cloud. That's where cloud is right now. It's growing every single year. We've only touched the tip of the iceberg of that growth, with so many industries moving to the cloud. And just the idea, there's tons of jobs that are out there. We want to help you get those jobs. And that's really where the Educate program, we have another program called Academy, but these are all grouped together in what we call our education to workforce programs from Amazon. And they stretch all the way down into K-12. So there are middle and high school students who are starting to learn this, certainly in community college, in four-year institutions, and master's programs and doctoral programs. What's great about it, as we walk through this, there's a lot of what we kind of refer to as on and off ramps. So you might come in, you might have limited time, you might just have time to get a certificate side of things, which is a great starting point to learning cloud. Those industry level certificates are fantastic. They're recognized like across all the industries, and as an AWS certification. But that's just kind of a starting point. At Delgado, you have the associate's degree. So one of the things there, you can get a certificate, you can get an associate's degree. That might also lead into something down the road. You're like, hey, I want to get a 4-year degree. That 4-year degree might later on say, you know what, I want to go on and get another level. So we want to provide a lot of opportunities for where you are. You might be, an opportunity for you to go in and learn this and get a certificate very quickly that could help you in a job you're already in, or might help you shift careers. So there's a lot of those opportunities. I'm going to talk about very specifically some of those opportunities that are available through the Educate program. The Educate program, this is just kind of, it's our global initiative. We want to make sure that you're getting jobs. That's really the important point. And you're not alone in doing this. So all around the world, there are quite literally hundreds of thousands of students right now learning cloud. They're in different parts of that journey. Some are closer to the end, meaning they are, maybe even getting a master's or a doctorate in this. There are those who are fresh out of high school who are just beginning to learn cloud as a part of a certificate program. They are part of an associate's program. These are students all around the world who are making this journey with you. And that's a kind of important thing to know, is that this is global, and there's a global set of both educators and students out there who can help. And we want to help make some of those connections through the Educate program. Like I said, our main goal here is to work backwards. So what we want to do is start with a job offer. We want to see, what are employers looking for? And that feeds into, what skills are being taught there at Delgado, what are the, course labs and things like that we build into it. But it really starts with that job. That's the end game for us. We want to see you get that job offer. And it's not just about going through the curriculum, going through the program. We also want to help you, understand, how do we help you prepare for an interview? So if you're going to work for AWS, we have a very specific interview process that everyone goes through. So we actually work with you to make sure you're prepared for those interviews. How do you interview? How do you make sure that your resume is set up? So we want to make sure you have everything in place to be successful to ultimately get that job. And that's kind of where we work backwards from. Make sure that you have the job offer, what are the requirements, and that informs some of the things you're going to be learning. We do that by providing a lot of content. We collaborate with Delgado, other community colleges within Louisiana, to make sure that you have the content that's needed. We're going to talk about some of the things that are available to students that are just self-paced, that kind of are outside the program a little bit, but may be of high interest. And then also, there's the big piece is the job board and the hands-on experience, meaning it's great to learn conceptually about cloud. It's great to learn about, how do I secure it? How do I make sure things are set up to be highly available? All this, what we call well-architected framework, those are all great. But the other skill you need to really work on is that keystroke competency, meaning you do also have to go learn, how do I get into AWS? Where do I need to go to stand up something? What do I need to click? Right. So those are also important, and really giving you the ability to go in and play, go in and do projects yourself is one of the key pieces to this. The other piece is to make sure that you have cloud covers such a wide area or wide set of technology. Make sure that we provide you opportunities to learn about some of those subsets. So one of the things that we had with an educator called badges, and the badges are either technology focused, or the badges are going to be focused around an in-demand skill set. We just launched Amazon Innovation Badge, meaning if you want to know how we think about building products, whether it's systems within Amazon Web Services with AWS, whether it's things like Alexa, those things like that we have, will walk you through some of those technologies that we have, and some of the very much emerging technologies, like you see the one in the middle. We're going to show an example of Deep Racer, which is machine learning. You probably hear machine learning, artificial intelligence. You probably hear them talked about interchangeably. They're not necessarily interchangeable, but they worked very closely together. And then we have some things here that walk you through how that works. So Deep Racer is a pretty cool intro to that. Another one, we know we have a lot of entrepreneurs out there. It's like, I've got an idea for a business. I'm going to be the next, billionaire in the world to come out with my business idea. We have one that's called startups. That's a really new one. We worked, of course, with the AWS startups team. Startups came, up through AWS, like Netflix and like Epic Games. Those are all startups. So we work with them in Y Combinator. So to talk about how do you come up with a minimal viable product, how do you put a business plan together? So those are things beyond the technology that are here as badges as well. 10 to 15 hours of content. You can get through it really quickly. So it's not anything that's incredibly long. The other thing we want to make sure you know of is just the variety of types of in-demand cloud careers that are out there. So we have also what's called career pathways. These are great to give you an introduction to what does this career entail. If you've never heard of a DevOps engineer, you might not have any idea of what the day-to-day of a DevOps engineer is, but this pathway will show you like, all right, what do you need to know to be successful in that type of a career? And what does a DevOps engineer really do? Like, what is their day-to-day? So these are great points for you to learn about, all right, which one of these do I maybe lean more toward? I talk to a lot of students who really love the solutions architect. Solutions architect, we hire those. I'm sure we hire, I don't know how many a day, but we hire a ton of solutions architect at AWS. And their job is kind of like it sounds like. You go listen to a customer. That could be a university. That could be, like I said, Lockheed Martin. It could be any customer we have out there. You hear about what their use case is and you help them come up with a solution. Like, this is where AWS can help. This is where maybe a partner of AWS can really help and come in. So it's just finding solutions for your customer. And those are kind of ones that can know all the pieces and can put the puzzle together for the customer. So there's a lot that's in here to take a look at. The career pathways range from 20 to 50 hours, and you'll earn a badge when you complete this. And the job board through Educate are aligned to these particular careers. So meaning if you're really like the software development engineer piece, then that's great. You're going to see jobs aligned to that. If you like the cloud support associate, you're going to see jobs aligned to that within the job board. So those who are posting jobs, they don't just post there. We also have a team dedicated that works on it, lets them know what it means when they see these badges. If you've gone through the cybersecurity specialist one, that company recruiter is going to know what that means, that you've gone through this extra 40 hours of content in addition to what you're already doing at Delgado. So these are great ones to go through to get an understanding of what are some of the most in-demand careers, and these align directly with the jobs posted on our job board. Couple more, and then we're going to jump right into AWS Educate, just to show a few things from the student side. Did want to show, we just talked about the job board. This is here for you. Again, all the jobs here are aligned to those career pathways, as well as you'll see not just jobs posted here, but you'll also see internships. So if you're looking for internships, not just with AWS by any means, there's hundreds of companies that we work with that post here beyond just AWS, but there's internships posted as well as there are full-time positions. And again, you'll have access to that right within Educate. And that said, let's jump into Educate right now. I'm actually already in here. So I'm logged in to Educate as a student. There are a few different things that I want to point to here, just so you know about where to find them. And we'll also talk about, I know there's some faculty on as well. So I'm in as a student right now. So the options I see at the top are these kind of main tabs. We're going to just go through them really, really fast. But I do want to point them out of what's here. Again, to join AWS Educate, you want to, you can go through the faculty that might have invited you into something called a classroom. We'll talk about that in a moment. But anyone can join Educate. But if you're a Delgado student, I encourage you to go through your faculty to do that. That way you have a few more options of access to AWS. So students that come in through faculty, that means they're invited through classrooms. They come in through their learning management system. Those students have access to what we call a starter account. So we talked about before getting that keystroke competency, meaning it's really good to get into AWS, see what's there, and start to kind of play around and build and understand how these services work, so that ultimately you can understand how they start to work together. So one of the ways we do that is through a starter account. So anyone in the world can get an AWS account. You just need to have a credit card. to get an AWS account, which can be a bit of a barrier. I just talked about, major enterprises use this. And if you put a credit card in, you might be thinking, I don't want to get a massive bill on my credit card for just learning how to use something that I don't know how to use, and I don't know maybe how things are priced. That's why we created the starter accounts. Starter accounts are here. No credit card. There's no way to get a bill. It gives you access to the vast majority of AWS services. Again, no way to ever be charged. So every year you get a credit of $100. You can go into that starter account and play around, do some projects. You might want to try out just some of the different services. It's really up to you to kind of go in and learn. It's your space to go in and try things out. Again, the great thing about it is you don't have to worry about getting the bill. You don't have to put a credit card in. You literally just click a button. And you have access to a real AWS account that's kind of think of a capped walled garden. So it's got some policies around it to keep you from doing anything crazy, but it gives you access to be able to learn. Beyond that, your faculty members can stand up what we call classrooms. So meaning if they have a course that they're teaching that requires you to do projects in AWS, this is a way they can provide that access with an AWS account that comes preloaded with credit that you don't, again, have to worry about a bill. So it's a way for them to provide that access. And you can see the ones that this student, I just made up a student here, that they're in multiple ones of these that they can go in, do the work that needs to be done for their course, and then, move on to the next course, do work for that. So it's a way for you to get that access again to real AWS so you can have that authentic hands-on experiences. And if you don't see my classrooms when you log into Educate first, it might be because you haven't been invited into one by a faculty member. That's why you might not see that. Two other places I want to go, and then we're going to wrap it up here just for the presentation part and go into the Q&A. One is under career pathways. I've mentioned those before. This is where you find all of those. So if I click on Cloud Computing 101 is a great place to start. This helps demystify the cloud. It helps demystify the console of AWS, which you're going to see in just about 2 minutes here. But this just kind of gives you an overview of what is it, what am I going to learn about, how many hours roughly is this going to take me. But each one of these is where you'll find what we're talking about before from the cloud career pathway standpoint. Badges, that's that more shorter form technology or in-demand topic content that we have. And there's quite a lot here. Some around Deep Racer. Sumerian is our VR, AR service that we have within AWS. And of course, there's a lot of things around IoT and gaming and robotics. But this is some great ones to go through. The top two, again, around startups and innovation. Innovation one just launched a few weeks ago and is a great one to learn about how do we think about innovating it at Amazon. Last two pieces. Portfolio, this is where everything is just saved. Think of it as a place where you can build out your CV, your resume. This is as you complete those badges, you can add them in here. Digital credentials, if you get that AWS certification, you can add that in here too. And then ultimately, you can share this with recruiters. So we have recruiters who are coming in. If I go to jobs right now, and there's 8,000 plus jobs that are listed in here. And you can see here, I just go through some of the latest ones by Accenture. But these are all searchable if I go in advance by those pathways. So if you're looking for a particular pathway that interests you, like solutions architect we mentioned before, or DevOps engineer, this is how you can filter those jobs for that. And again, these are companies we work with specifically so that they understand what do the badges mean. What does it mean when a student's gone through this? So these are they have a good understanding of what work you've gone through through the Educate program, as well as through Delgado. All right, I want to show just a couple examples, and then we'll open it up for questions. I don't think there's anything else on this page that I need to show, but let's go to just the console itself. So I'm logged into AWS, and like I mentioned before, the first time you log into this, if I go down, these are our services. I keep going, 175 plus. And the first time you log in, in the second, maybe the third and the fifth, or what. It's a bit overwhelming. Like you start to look at this and you start to say like, well, what, I don't know what all these acronyms are. I don't know what weird things like kinesis. What does that even mean? What does SageMaker mean? There's all these weird names. There's all these weird pieces in here that the Cloud 101 piece. And as you start to use it, they'll start to make a lot more sense. And I typically look at the big overarching buckets here, like compute. So compute in general, what does that mean? It means instead of having to buy a computer or a server, this is where I can go to stand up that virtually. You know, that could mean a Windows machine. That could mean Linux. That could mean a Mac machine that I need to stand up in the cloud. That's where I can do that type of thing. These other ones, again, there's a ton here. I'm going to show just some more of the kind of cool and flashy ones. And I'm going to do that by going down here a little bit to what we call the machine learning ones. So machine learning, there's a lot in here that are both machine learning and AI. So a lot of the things that you see behind the scenes of how things like Alexa work runs off different services that are here. So uses a lot of the different services in here to work on the back end. But I want to show one just really quickly. It's built off of several servers. Or several services, I should say. So I'm going to go to first to Deep Racer. Oops. There we go. So I went into Deep Racer just really quickly. So what you're looking at on your screen here might be a little confusing. So what is going on here? So Deep Racer, let's take a step back. So one of the cool ones we have is Deep Racer. Deep Racer is, it's a great entry point to learning machine learning. And it's actually the first thing you're working on in what's called reinforcement learning. So what is this trying to do in the simulation here? Well, we have an autonomous car and we're trying to train this car to stay on track and to go around this particular track as fast as possible. So initially the setup of this took me all of, I don't know, maybe 90 seconds to get this up and running. I just had to click. I spent more time, I think, typing in the name of this than I did actually getting it set up to run, which is great because you get up running, you're racing something. What ultimately you can do is you literally can compete against other students around the world who are doing this. But it starts to give you kind of a reward graph, and you can start to make little small adjustments that can make the timing faster and faster and faster. And it starts to first introduce you to machine learning, and then you can start to dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this. Why do I say machine learning? Machine learning has to do with data. And how do you analyze the data, and how do you make sense of data, and how do you use data to make decisions, right? So this is a great entry point to learn about how data is used. Machine learning, and the reason you hear it so much is because roll back a few years ago, just a few years ago, machine learning was only capable of being done at some of the largest companies in the world or research institutions, because it took a highly, highly technical person to be able to do it. It took people highly, in the high math education to be able to do it. It also took resources from a compute that maybe were out of reach for most people and most companies. What's happening over the last few years is you can see I'm doing machine learning right now. I didn't have to know anything about it other than click. So it's becoming more and more prevalent in all businesses. So it's a great one to learn about. This is a fun one to do it, that you can have a competition. And if you get really into it, the cool one about this is there is actually a physical car. This is not required, by the way, to be in the competition. And actually a lot of the winners of the competitions never actually had this. But this is a way to actually put it into a physical device. That this is a small autonomous vehicle. Like, this is what this is. Literally, after I train it and deploy my model to this, I can have it go around a track all on its own. I'm not giving it anything. It's just navigating by itself. And I can put it into a new environment, and hopefully it'll navigate by itself easily without hitting something too. But it's a way you can kind of think about virtual all up here and apply this to something that's actually physical. and out in the real world. So this is kind of a cool one to do. All right. I want to show one more, and then we'll open it up for questions. I know I'm taking a lot of time, but let me go to one more here. You're going to see me on the screen. So this is going to be utilizing several different services from AWS. And what it hopefully will do, if I've trained the model correctly, will start to give me an understanding of how engaged I am. You know, typically if we were in a setting where you were in the audience and we were live in person, I would turn this around on you and let it kind of show me the engagement meter. But I'm going to go ahead and start the recognition. And hopefully it'll identify me because I uploaded my picture. And it'll start to tell you if I'm happy. I'm 99% happy, 1% angry. But it'll start to show you, confused, angry, sad. Okay, so it's based off of my facial expressions. It is telling me what I am, and it's got the age ring pretty right. That's a pretty good ballpark of my age. But it's going to tell me how is it trending from an engagement standpoint. How does this work? Like, how did I do this? So a lot of the times you think about identification of face and facial. This isn't looking. I uploaded my picture to identify myself. This is all based on this computer's model understanding of the real world. Who controls the understanding of its world? You do. You tell it what is truth and what is not. And that's how machine learning works. It requires very large data sets to be able to analyze so it can start to train and understand what is truth and what is false. What's important for you to know is this is controlled by me, the model that I put in. I could have very easily tagged this instead of being happy, a little bit angry. So I need to train the model a little better. But instead of being happy, I could have said this equals angry, right? That would be very confusing. It's just, how do you set up the model on the back end? And I think it's really important in our world to understand what goes into training a model, right? If the model says that you are this, who told it this is the real world? Right. So I know I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but this is utilizing several services from our Kinesis, so live data analytics. It's utilizing a service called recognition, which means you can train a model to understand the world. And then there's a couple other things it's using for creating the dashboard and displaying that here. But this is a pretty cool demonstration of things you can do. So what are real world applications of this? So one of the coolest one I saw from students is they would literally just, as they're walking up with a tray of food to the trash can, it would identify things on that tray on a big screen and say, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, based on the types of plastic, based on the type of things it identified in the environment. So that was just kind of one cool project I saw at one of the institutions we were at of being able to use this technology. All right, I know I went actually 4 minutes longer than I wanted to for that particular part. But I did want to open it up for questions and just kind of end on this saying there's all these services here. You don't have to be an expert in every single one of them. Actually, I would say no one at AWS is a full expert in every single service here. You tend to specialize or you work off kind of a broad set. But with this set of services, you can do just about anything you can think of, right? So that the idea of, is this kind of the base layer to build off of? Web applications, complete services, analyzing DNA for genomes, all this can be done utilizing these type of services that are here, and it's something you have access to through Delgado. All right, I'm going to pause. I'm going to break out of there, go back to my presentation, and just open it up for, I was going to go into hands-on, but we'll skip through that, and just open it up for questions.
I got one where it's more like a comment.
Sure.
I had opened an AWS application 2 weeks ago, but thanks to you, I could get started this week. And the second thing is, you are correct about the cloud thing. I was trying to get a certificate from Microsoft. You know how they get the certificate, and everything is shipping to cloud. and all their old certificate is being retired.
Oh, oh wow. I didn't know that, but yeah, definitely everything's shifting the cloud.
I actually had a question. I think it was when Julia had written into me to ask for you. And I want to shoot it to you. The question being, in the field of cloud computing, what is the biggest challenge that you've encountered that has helped you improve yourself?
Biggest challenge to help me improve myself.
Ooh, I gave you a hard one, huh?
Yeah. I was trying to think about that one. Just, I think the challenge for me was because the depth and breadth of what is offered is so great. I tend to want to be a perfectionist and just learn everything without stopping. And I had to, the challenge for me was to go, I don't need to go 30 layers deep in this particular one service on AWS because I'm not the one going into an account and building. It was making sure understanding what are the objectives I need to really understand and know without getting lost in the 175 services, right? That I think that's true for anyone who is going to learn cloud is, get an understanding, certainly get some introduction understanding, play around with it, and start to see where is there a particular area you gravitate to, and focus in on that because it's so big and it changes so fast. Trying to be an expert in every service or every aspect of it, that's not needed, right? Because you typically will have understanding that you're going to have teammates that are going to come on that may have the expertise that you don't, but you have expertise that they might not have. So I think it's the saying it's okay to not know, and it's okay to, but also know that, hey, I can help you find the answer somewhere else, right? Somebody else is going to know this. It's just because it's such a big place. That same was the truth for me, and not just for AWS and the technology side of it, but especially when I came to Amazon, because it is such a massive company. I feel like AWS, a lot of us talk about it as a conglomerate of startups. I soon realized I didn't have to understand every aspect of it because I would never stop because there's always new things popping up. But I did have to understand, like, all right, here's the process I know where I can go find out more, right, if I do need to know that. So it's kind of somewhat limiting yourself to say it's okay that I don't know. That was a long answer to say it's okay that I don't know.
So we got 2 questions in chat, or 3 now. I guess I'll hit them for you. One was a question about cost. I know you touched a bit upon cost. I guess, what is the cost in starting with AWS Educate? I guess once students hit a cap.
Yeah, so at AWS Educate, there's no cost associated with anything I showed. So the access to AWS, it comes preloaded with credit. When you run out of credit, there's opportunity again that gets re-upped every year. But we never ask for a credit card. You never get a bill, nothing like that. From an AWS perspective in general, cost is based off of what is, think of running and you're using. So it's based off of actual usage, and that varies based off of what you're using and the size of it. So if I have think of a server that's like almost the equivalent of a Chromebook, I'm probably not going to pay more than, a fraction of a penny an hour for that type of service. Versus if I have a machine that has, 98 virtual CPUs and 300 and something gigs of RAM, a very powerful machine, obviously I'm going to be paying multiple dollars an hour to run that. And a big part of the cloud is understanding what is right for a job. So you don't always have to go what we call kind of horizontally bigger, meaning I need a bigger, better computer. It's understanding that I can have a lot of small ones and scale out, horizontally to meet my need. I don't need the biggest, baddest thing out there, but I just need the ability, like, all right, when I hit a peak, I'm going to add another server, and I'm going to add another one, and then I'm going to add 1,000 more. And after that, it just comes back down. So I think that's one, Educate, no cost. AWS, it's based off of usage, and it's based off the size of the thing you're using.
So we have another question. If I have no cloud experience at all, this is from Tracy King. If I have no cloud experience at all, what is something I can do today to get started? A simple project, something like that.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is if you go to AWS, one, if you don't already have an AWS Educate account, get that. That way you can get into cloud and do the projects you want. Once in, my first suggestion is that Cloud Computing 101 course is going to have projects in there to get started. The very first one they have you do is to go in and spin up a server. Right? If you've never experienced a server, it'll walk you through step by step of how to do that and how to connect to it. And that's actually it's like a 10-minute activity, very quick, and it'll show you how quickly I can have a computer up and running in the cloud and I can make it do whatever I need it to do. One of the cool things is I was in a presentation with some students and they said like, what's the first thing I can do? And like, hey, I'm on a Mac right now. We were talking about another part of the presentation was somebody talking about using a service that runs on Windows only. Just because I have a Mac doesn't mean I can't run that. All I have to do is go into AWS, spin up a Windows machine, load up that software on the Windows, and now my Mac is running a Windows machine just like it would anything else. So it's pretty cool to kind of see that. Like, hey, I can stand up a Windows machine, a Mac, a Linux, whatever it might be in the cloud and have it running. We have a lot of students, they like to try out for gaming right off the bat. I don't know, I want to learn more before you start doing that, but they like to go try out some of the gaming stuff. They might want to run a PC that has Steam running on it and run a particular game that they want to try. But not saying that's what you should do for projects, but that's for your own fun time.
All right, got a couple more questions for you. One question is, what kind of programming experience do you have, if any?
I have very little programming experience. I know a little bit of just a little bit of Python from the machine learning stuff I've done. But that's not for this. It's not really having a programming language is, I think, essential for anyone. But as far as AWS, pretty much agnostic on that, really. A lot of the people that I talk to, they have Python. They will have a few other programming languages, but it's not for a lot of the positions that we're looking at here. It's good to know. It's good to have some programming understanding, but it's not a requirement for all those positions at all. Like I said, I have enough Python experience to be a little dangerous, but not anything else.
Just going down the line, unless anyone wants to hop into the question, can high schoolers also take advantage of AWS Educate, or do they have like other requirements they have to meet before diving in?
No, high schoolers can take advantage of Educate. The high school, I didn't show it on this particular call, but we do have high school specific courses and badges to go through, as well as the ones I showed today too. So we don't limit high schoolers to just doing the high school stuff, but there's separate badges that we have specific to high school. But yeah, it's open. The program's open for those who are 14 and up.
Awesome. Will AWS Educate allow any administrator access anytime soon? Do you know? This is from Alex. And now it seems to be that it's kind of at the basics, but there's some admin access required for more well-architected labs. So I guess. Yeah,
great question. So my guess is the question's around identity. We have a part of AWS is identity and access management. A lot of the way big companies use it is they'll have a single, maybe a few child AWS accounts, and they provide access through creating users and groups and putting policies around those. So Educate, because of the nature of it being no cost, there are limitations there. So you can get practice of setting up those groups and users and applying policies. A policy just means controls like what you can and can't do. So you can get practice with that using Educate, but it won't allow somebody to log in. So if you need a framework that needs what we call programmatic access, meaning you're accessing it without using that fancy GUI, that fancy management console we were just in. We have ways to support that, but it's not through those classrooms or starter account within Educate. It's through providing what we call promotional credits to use in a regular AWS account. So we do have mechanisms for you to do that. It's just not in the classroom or starter accounts that we have.
Awesome. And I think this is the last question, unless I missed it in chat. How would someone, where in AWS, pulling up AWS AWS Educate, apologies. How would someone, if they're interested in security or quality assurance and connection to cloud computing, where would they start?
So I think there's two places I would say if you're brand new. Again, the Cloud Computing 101 is going to give the foundational, what does it mean to be secure in the cloud? And that's not AWS. We'll go into AWS, but in general, it's thinking about security from any cloud provider standpoint. So the Cloud 101 under Career Pathways is a great place to start. The other one that will go further into how do you make sure that what you've architected is secure is the cybersecurity specialist pathway. We'll dive into that because that'll talk about ways in AWS you can actually perform penetration testing, what you can and can't do on AWS from a security standpoint to test out your infrastructure. But the cybersecurity one is the one I would point you to right now. We know at Delgado, there's two programs that we have for the education of the workforce. There's the Educate program. There's another one called Academy. And Academy is part of our training and certification side. And there's tons of free workshops and resources and modules to go through on building what we call a well-architected framework, which is a major component of that is making a secure one. So there's tons of that free content on there to go technical deep dives into how to make everything secure. But I'd start with the Cloud 101 and the cybersecurity specialist badges.
Hey, Mike, I got a question.
Sure.
My name is Alex McMillan. I'm an instructor here at Delgado, and we've just recently kicked off a cloud architecture class. And going back to that question I kind of piped through Claude with the administrator access. Mm-hmm. So I have requested those credits, those promotional credits, and to run in my own, my own AWS kind of account, right? So mm-hmm. I'll bring in my students via their own username and password and things like that. But do I need to have a class associated with that? Like, do I need to make a class in AWS Educate to associate those promotional credits to? Because I don't have a class made right now for that in Educate, but I did request the credits.
Yeah, so no, you don't need to. So the two separate environments completely. So the classrooms is going to come preloaded with credit that we provide. If you requested the promotional credits, once approved, that'll go directly to you to be added to your own AWS account outside of Educate. So they're not connected at all. You don't have to have a classroom in order to use the promotional credits.
Okay. Just to follow up, I hate to put you on the spot like this because it's, but how long does that usually take? It's been, I talked to Myra about this over a month ago and submitted the request over a month ago, and I haven't got an answer on that yet. Is there a way I can expedite those?
Yeah, I if you want to, I don't know if you have my contact information. I can look it up and see where it is in the process. But yeah, usually, I think it says takes up to a month, but it shouldn't. I don't know why it's hung up right now, but I can go in and check and see where it's at.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll get your contact info and shoot you an email. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I just want to, don't want to keep you too long, Mike, because I know you have things you get to. Just want to see if there's any other questions anyone has, any last minute, what's up with AWS questions for Mike to field.
If there's a way we could reshoot, like through Facebook or, Discord, do you got any, social media that, if we want to ask you some more questions or help, we could contact you?
Yeah, I think that my email address, I don't know if that can be shared in the chat, maybe. That's probably where I can just put it really quickly, right? 1 second. Yeah, just my email address is that's the best route to reach me.
Awesome. Well, I guess then I'll wrap this up. Wait, there's one last question. Is the only way to access AWS Educate through an instructor?
No, there's not. So anyone can sign up for AWS Educate. The piece that's accessible if you come in through an instructor is the starter account piece and the classrooms. So those are the two kind of access points into the actual AWS console that would need to be kind of led by the faculty member. But if you just go to awseducate.com and sign up, you'll have access to all the content, the job board, all those different things. You just wouldn't have access to a classroom, which is driven by faculty, and you wouldn't have access to a starter account if you just come in directly, think from our marketing awseducate.com page. But you have access to all the content.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being with us today, for talking to us about AWS Educate. I guess we'll wrap it up. So if anyone has any remaining questions or has feedback or wants to know what we're going to do next month, feel free to reach out to us. Again, email address is cmin@dcc.edu. It's in the chat. Mike's email is in the chat. But beyond that, thank you all again so much and have a wonderful week. And thank you again to Mike.